Okay, so Dr. Pratt-Harris, tell me, what was your reaction?
Well, I was not in a place that I expected to be at the time. We
Mhm.
knew the verdict was coming in, and I expected guilty actually because of the time frame between the beginning of the deliberation and then when they said they announced the verdict. That was about 24 hours
Mhm.
exactly, and that's rather quick in my estimate. If there was going to be a tug of war regarding a verdict, it would more likely be a lengthier response time. So I expected it. I am not just being optimistic. I'm just kind of thinking about what's happened in some cases where the deliberation was drawn out. And, when it's drawn out, the possibility exists that there'll be a hung jury or, debate about person maybe not being guilty. So it seems like they were all in the same accord. Maybe they had to pull one or two jurors in, but I expected guilty. I think we know it's guilty. We know what we saw. So it's like, while we experience true injustice, um, the expectation is that this time with this particular case, they had no other option but to render a guilty verdict 3 times over.
So now, from your experience in criminal justice and social work and dealing with these types of issues, and as an educator, where do we go from here, though? I mean, this is, they're celebrating not all over the country, definitely Minneapolis, all over Facebook, social media platforms, that this is justice and this is, justice for the Floyd family. It's the first time we've seen a case like this in I don't know how long, but where do we go from here?
I think we continue to do what we have been doing. There's a lot of folks who are doing the work. They are committed to doing the work. They grew up in the United States. They lived the experience of injustice in the United States. They have a lived experience regarding their personal encounters with law enforcement in the courts and in our jails and prisons. And they have decided that they would take on the role of being educators, of being researchers, of being law enforcement professionals, of being lawyers, of going to law school, continue to work in those areas so that we can really address the systemic issues. I recognize that when we have this moment, it's like a popular response. And so there's like this understanding that there's a move because of this popular response, and many people are on the same accord, but there are so many people across the country, definitely locally in Baltimore. For example, with Coppin State University and Morgan State University working together to teach a policing inside out class. We've been committed. This fall will be our 4th cohort in Baltimore, where we bring law enforcement students and community members together in a 15-week class. We're going to be continuing to do that. We did this fall 2020 when we couldn't get together in person. We did this virtually. We'll be doing it again fall 2021, and we began fall 2018. So just continuing to do the work, bringing more people on board to address our issues, and recognize that we may have differences in how this gets done. Many people talk about not necessarily agreeing with more training or different angle in training. There's this humanity that is policing, for example, but all of us have a stake in this. We can all offer something that can really address the issue and move us in a positive direction and not go backwards. Because without a doubt, what we saw in May of 2020 was you can't erase that from your memory,
What kind of impact do you see something like this having in terms of policing, in terms
Well,
of our interactions with law enforcement? I mean, do you concerns about that possibly, or maybe not so much?
Well, I think people of color will, and for generations, will continue to have, apprehension, concerns, second thoughts, anxiety when they encounter law enforcement. I'm actually completing a book on police training and offering an angle from the perspective of persons who live in America as Black people in America. And one of the things I acknowledge is that while I teach young people and older folks who become law enforcement professionals, while I enjoy the relationships that we have with law enforcement professionals, while I enjoy the building of relationships with law enforcement and students and community, I have apprehension about calling them for service, because that is, based upon my lived experience of being Black in America, of having a Black husband, having Black male, sibling, knowing what their real experience is, and recognizing that when a police officer is called, we don't know what the outcome is going to be. But we can, knowing the outcome, knowing the possibility of outcome, we can be involved in the change. We can be involved in the reform. We can be involved in the work so that we can get to another space. We don't have to live or fester in the fear without doing something about it.
Okay, all right. Okay, so real good. I mean, that'll be good for our interview. I'm just kind of get some kind of shots of us kind of sitting here talking. So what have you been up to?
Well, last time we saw each other, I got both doses of Pfizer, so I'm happy about that.
Oh, yeah, I got my Moderna.
I'm so thankful for that. I am completing the a policing book. It should be to the publisher by the first week of May. It's something I have to edit. We have 20 chapters with about 35 authors, contributors, and just modifying that, getting through the semester. Students